At the beginning of my channel's life, I received these cool items from Steamforge Games' Epic Encounters line. 1 year later, and I'm ready to tackle this beast. Yes, let's jump right in and deal with this hefty chunk of a dragon. If you have the same set, the biggest disappointment, really the only one, is that the dragon is attached to the base. This is a pity because the detailing on the dragon's underside and the gold pile aren't really things that should be missed, so we're gonna remedy this. Using a pin drill, I'm going to drill pilot holes into the underside of the base. You can see the 4 points where they attached the dragon. You'll feel that the base is made of a different plastic than the dragon. It's stiff and hollow, where the dragon is made of a softer plastic, but is solid. The idea is to cut out enough of the material sticking the dragon to the base to pull them apart. Obviously, the pin drill isn't big enough to dig the plastic out, so onto the power drill. Using a 1/4 drill bit, I'm going to slowly, carefully drill up through the base, occasionally checking if the dragon is loose. When the foot is loose, move on to the next one and repeat until with a bit of wiggling you can pull the pieces apart. Then carve away the excess plastic on the feet as needed with an X-Acto knife. The other thing you've probably wondered if you have this model is, how the heck do the damn wings go on? The fit is very snug out of the box, and I've seen people hack at it to make it fit. You don't need to do that. It really is quite easy. Just make yourself some hot to boiling water and dip the wing connections in it. Don't soak the whole wing since you'll need to apply some pressure and don't want the whole thing to bend. Once the heat's made it soft, just put it together. It should pop right in and you can bend the rest of the wing to fit into the slot provided. You're still going to have gaps to clean up, but way less than just forcing the wings to fit. I am using green stuff for gap fill. It's a 2-part epoxy clay. To really work with this stuff, I recommend getting a set of silicone and metal tools. It's a bit tough for silicone, but they can help smooth or texture, so the metal tools are the main ones I use for manipulation. The majority of gap fill work is just rolling out a worm of green stuff as thin as possible, and then using this hooky tool to press it into the gaps. Add water as needed to keep stuff from sticking to tools and your fingers. Aside from the obvious parts around the wings, I also disguise the seams around every leg. Don't stress perfection. Paint will be doing a lot of work in making your fill work disappear. After rattle can priming fully in black and a single direction in gray to get an idea where light will hit, go over the model with a large brush in dark colors to establish the base lighting. I started off with crushed soar for most of the shadows and dragon red for the brightest areas of the model. You can also try mixing your paint with airbrush flow improver. I found it helps push the paint into any deep spot on the model. It's pretty handy when you're working with your dark colors. This stage is fast. Just block out lighter and darker areas. The belly I blocked in orange to try and simulate light reflecting off the golden coins and onto the dragon. You'll notice I also put in blue lights. This was because I was attempting to make the dragon iridescent like a rainbow boa, but I didn't really feel like it was working out. I paint over all the blue later. However, it did give me the idea of adding blues onto my dragon in a different way. A big way this inspiration came through was that I went back over the darkest areas of the dragon with Oxford blue, pushing the darkest darks even more so. While tone-wise it's actually not that much darker than crushed soar, because of the cooler color your brain still reads it as darker, and adding a different color for the shadows makes the entire thing more rich. I came in with pure red for the highlights. Red is tricky because you can easily make it orange or pink. Because of that, pure red is as high as I went, which left the dragon with this lush ruby red. The underbelly I came in with bright white oranges to push the idea of light reflecting onto the scales. I wasn't really delicate here, as when the dragon sits on the base, a lot of this is obscured. Strong, bold highlighting is your friend in such a situation. Now, I tried to do the wings by hand. While I have an airbrush, I was a bit scared of it since in my previous projects I had difficulty getting it to work right. However, due to the large, smooth areas of this dragon's wings, blending became more and more of a nightmare as more layers were added. So finally I gave up and pulled out the airbrush. To get rid of my mess, I used saran wrap around the dragon, not unlike the models in the swamp diorama, to keep it from getting painted since I'm happy with the body. Once protected, using stick tack for some areas as well, I reprimed it entirely in gray. This is because the wings, having light cast through them, should be lighter than the body, so the shadows do not need to come out black. Once again, my airbrush caused me a lot of stress. Wasn't blowing well, it was clogging constantly, but finally I figured it out. If you're like me and bought a cheap set from Amazon, take a look at your needles. The one installed when shipped was bent, I knew that already, but I'd replaced it with this short needle. When I finally decided to try using the third needle that came in the set, this long one, everything started working smoothly. Unsure what the short needle is for, but after that little fix, this cheap set is working beautifully. Since I usually work from dark to light, I started by base coating with Rojo Red, a lovely deep red with a convenient purple hue to it. Then I slowly worked up to Red RLM 23, then a mix of Yellow Ochre and Medium Yellow to try and make light look like it's casting through. Just work in smaller and smaller highlights away from the fingers of the wing, but make sure to hit the bottom edge of the webbing to simulate the thinness of these bat-like wings. Then it's back again with the body colors to redo the arm and fingers of the wing. As we're getting close to being finished, it's time to add black. Over all the spikes, I am hitting them with matte black. Black, like red, is hard to shade as it's really easy to make gray, and I want to make an obsidian black. So I'm gently highlighting with a mix of deep blue and black to make an even deeper blue. It's hard to see, but it's enough to give depth to the black while keeping that startling black of obsidian. The mouth is kind of the centerpiece of this model. Yes, it's kind of small in comparison, but the head should still be the focal point and the mouth will make that happen. My plan is to make it look like some jolly adventurers are only moments away from becoming barbecue. Base the mouth and teeth in white, then go over in orange with Flow Improver to sink into the cracks. Work up to yellow, remembering that in fire, the darkest color is the coolest, so orange in the front of the mouth to yellow, then white at the throat. Repeat this around the nostrils, which have the perfect sculpt for such an effect. On the teeth, make sure yellow is around each tooth, then paint them white. It should look like a glow coming from between the teeth. Not a difficult technique, and it looks amazing. Add some light for the eye. I went with blue, and you'll have an interesting face to focus on. With that, I think we're ready for the base. It was here I decided I wanted to install magnets, since I can't pass up a multi-use project, and the base sculpt is too good not to be able to use it as its own prop. Should I have decided that before painting? Oh, probably, but that's just not how I do things. So back with the power drill, I clean up the holes in the base and make deeper divots into the paws. Don't forget pilot holes. I did, and it was a nightmare. I bought 1/4 sized magnets, so I ended up using 1 drill size bigger to give them room. Then it's the deceptively simple task of getting the magnets in place with hot glue. Luckily, with the strength of the magnets and being 4 of them, you don't really have to be precise. As long as you handle the dragon, the base won't fall off. Doesn't really work the other way though. The dragon is just too thick. Though filling the holes in the base with hot glue did add some heft to it, it also ended up giving it a bit of a rubber foot effect. This gal is not gonna slide around. Anyway, once the magnets are in place, use a little green stuff on the feet just to hide the magnets a bit. However, we're going to tackle the holes in the base a bit differently. Still using green stuff, roll out a tube about the width of the coins on the sculpture. Then let sit for about 24 hours so the green stuff will set and become firm, but still be pliable. While we're waiting on that, let's add some details to the base. I obviously want to hide where the sculpture hits the plain base, so some of my good old coffee and leftover aquarium gravel will do the trick. This isn't perfect for hiding the seam, but in 24 hours, we'll have something even better.
Tomorrow.
The green stuff is now set, and this is the perfect time to cut it into a billion little coin shapes. Once you have your billion little coins, glue them over the magnets to disguise the holes. Do your best to be a bit haphazard about it. Humans are really good at both setting and recognizing patterns. I used PVA glue since it doesn't set fast. Lets me push the coins around for a while. Sprinkling these coins across the bottom of the base will also hide where the coin sculpture ends. Go crazy with it. I actually ended up with extra. Now at this point, there's a pretty obvious problem with the coins being green, and the base being green, brown, and quartz. With the now handy airbrush once again, I'm going to paint the bottom of the base in black, but make sure not to let the paint creep up too far. I plan on preserving the bright gold as much as possible, but the black airbrush helps blur it into darkness, making the whole thing even more cohesive. Now, for the coins hiding the holes, I'm going to base them with a brush-on primer, then cover it with Dragon Red. Prime gems and loot at this time too. Do make sure to cover every little bit of green though, since that color showing will be a bit jarring. I do not have the particular gold used on this model, nor do I know what it is, but conveniently, Dragon Gold is really close. Especially if you dry brush some across the tops of the treasure pile, since it's a bit more yellow than the treasure. With a bit of savvy dry brushing, you can make the mismatched color even less obvious. I also colored the coins at the base. They stick out of the black pretty aggressively, but I like the effect. Finally, I went over the loot hiding in the pile with shining silver and gunmetal, and a slight touch of white over the sharp edges. I colored the gems in red, blue, and purple so that I didn't have any jarring colors not already present in the dragon. I based them dark, then went with a strong matching light to gently cover the topmost face and highlight the edges. Gives them a little bit of depth. Finally went over any wooden areas with fur brown, which is a good red-toned brown. Now this is looking good, but it isn't there yet. The coins need more depth. So it's washes time! I covered the entire thing with soft wash, though pay attention to the darkest side of your model. Match those sides with strong wash, even going to dark wash if you really want to push it. But with these washes soaking into the cracks, it looks amazing. This undertaking is done. Thanks so much for watching, and I really hope this helps you with your future projects. If you want to see what I'm doing in between videos, please follow me on Instagram and Tumblr. If you want to support my projects, consider heading over to Ko-fi and dropping $1, or even picking up a set of handmade dice. Until next time, stay safe and have fun!